Well, hopefully this works. The defense has no intention of presenting evidence. What? The proof that there's a contradiction cannot be found in the court record. What is the meaning of this, Mr. Wright? The professor pointed out to me in the previous witch trial. In this court, an attorney's arsenal isn't limited to the court record. Ha! Each of the witnesses in this trial has given their own account of what occurred. Therefore, whenever one witness has testified, the other remaining witnesses have listened. Should one witness's testimony differ from another's testimony, then I suppose in itself can also be considered a contradiction, can it not? Ah. Juxtaposing contradictory testimony from different witnesses is the key. Ms. Grey-Earl, your testimony contradicts another one that we've heard in this court today. Huh. Alright, I have no reason to take his life nor steal his letter to the storyteller. And the contradictory statement. Master took me in, a complete stranger. I will forever be indebted. Sir Belduke was a wonderful man. He's one who recommended me to this line of work. And he's the only one who told me about it. The confidentiality obligation. I'll never once broken it. I guess it's this one. I can't imagine it being either of the other two.
Objection!
Holy shit! Oh, they turned the statue! It was a single word that gave you away, Miss Grey-Earl. What do you mean by that? The name of the recipient. There were only a few people who knew the intended recipient of that letter. 4 people to be precise. Only 4 people? First was Sir Belduke, the author of the letter. Then it was Miss Mailer who delivered it. And of course the storyteller, its recipient. As well as one more person. The one who stole the letter using a portal spell and swapped it with the blank sheets of parchment. The witch. Maybe I did? Maybe I spilled the beans about the letter, I mean. Maybe I told the butler. You did what? Well, because you see, me and the butler are sort of friends. And it was about our dear Sir Belduke. I feel like I might have told her about it after all. See, if I did, that's how she knew about the recipient, I mean.
Objection!
I understand that you're friends with Miss Grey-Earl and you want to help her out. But I got a piece of advice, Miss Mailer. You shouldn't lie, not even for a friend. Remember your testimony. You told us about the courier's duty to keep the details of the letters confidential. And you also testified that you've never broken that obligation, remember?
Objection!
But hold on a minute. As the victim's butler, Jean Grey-Earl might have had a chance to catch a glimpse of the envelope.
Objection!
No, she didn't. When Miss Mailer came with the delivery, Sir Belduke was still writing that letter. In fact, he was in the middle of it at the time. The letter had not been addressed yet. And the next morning, when the body was discovered, the letter was already in the letterbox. Keep in mind that Miss Grey-Earl should have had no opportunity to see it then either. Is that so? She went to report the crime without even setting foot in the study? And then Miss Mailer appeared and retrieved the letter. Needless to say, Miss Grey-Earl couldn't have learned of the letter's recipient afterwards. Or maybe you have a very good explanation, Miss Grey-Earl? I'd very much like to hear one. Can you please tell the court how you found out about the recipient's name? Mr. Wright. Yes? Do you remember what I said when I was called to the witness stand? Yes. At the heart of alchemy lies the pursuit of the rules of logic that govern nature. You've demonstrated the power of your own logic. Miss Grey-Earl. Are you saying... Yes, I confess. The abhorrent witch who used the spell Godor to swap the contents of that letter and who took the life of Master Belduke, it was none other than I. Wow! She admitted it. Okay. Damn, everyone's silent. I was an only child, born to a poor family. I've been a witch since I was very little. When did I become aware of it? I don't remember. Although I was but a young child, I knew that being a witch was a crime. That's why I hid my witch's scepter and wouldn't use magic at all. My father worked as a bricklayer. He toiled every day, but we would hardly make ends meet. One winter day, he couldn't afford to pay the rent. We were going to lose the house. My mother was in tears, and my father was sitting with his head down, wordless.
I want money for Mummy and Daddy.
That day, I suddenly remembered about the witch's scepter that I had hidden. The Goldor spell. I thought I'd try it just once, casting the spell, but at the time I had no idea what an irreversible mistake that would be. Even though no one told me, I knew from the very beginning what magic I was able to use. But should I turn into gold? What was I thinking about? I was thinking about it really hard, that little girl that I was. Something that wouldn't stand out, that would be taken for a work of art. Then I decided I chose a pretty leaf that had fallen into our garden. But it wasn't the right thing to do after all. I was terribly punished for using magic, even just that once. Punished? In what way were you punished? I placed the leaf down in the back garden and cast the spell, but then Margaret suddenly walked in front of me. Margaret? My closest childhood friend. Margaret, right before my eyes, she was turned into gold. Oh dear me. I screamed and cried, but I knew I couldn't ask anyone for help. If anyone had seen it, they would have known it was the work of magic, and I knew Margaret wasn't coming back. That's terrible. And then my mother and father's faces flashed before my eyes. We may have been very poor, but we were always happy together. Had I been captured as a witch, I feared my parents probably wouldn't be safe either. That thought tormented me more than anything, and so I made my decision. I decided to end my own life. Damn, this is a dark fucking story. I threw myself into the river near the town. It was winter and the water was as cold as ice. I couldn't even move. It was painful. My consciousness started drifting away. The next thing I knew, I was in Master Belduke's residence. He risked his own life jumping into the freezing river to save me. I burst into tears and told him everything. I didn't want to go back home. I would only end up causing my parents grief. Master Belduke listened to me without interrupting, and then he told me this.
You can stay here, but from now on, you must live as a boy.
Ah. Master Belduke met with my parents and explained everything to them. They were very sad, but they agreed it would be best if I didn't return home. Also, they said I was expensive as hell to buy food and clothes and put in school, so they welcomed the fact that I was not with them anymore. They shortly had enough money to live and open a new business. They became rich, fabulous, wealthy, and they never talked to me again. The end. Poor Miss Grayle. It must have been so awful for her. Master bought the house for my parents, so they wouldn't have to worry about paying rent anymore. As for Margaret, turned into gold, she brought her to his residence. He knew that if anyone saw her, they would report an incident of witchcraft. And this Miss Margaret, is she still in that golden state? Yes, she is. That's strange. We have received no reports of anyone by that name having gone missing. Margaret is being kept in the basement of Undermaster's study. The basement? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this Margaret, is she, Yes, my dear friend was a goat that we were keeping at our house. Goat. Until then, Master Belduke had mainly been researching medicine. But since the incident with Margaret, he became known as an alchemist. So that's when he became an alchemist. I was wondering why that goat was the only thing not covered in dust. Huh. What a wild story, huh? This is a wild story so far. Sheesh.